How's it going, everybody? To my 5 subscribers, I would like to wish a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope it was well for you guys. Santa brought you guys everything you wanted. Santa was very good to me. We now have a drawer full of nice Milwaukee tools. All M18s. I'll have to get the M12s myself, but this is pretty much all I want in M18 tools at the moment. And then as for what I bought myself, today we made a run down to Horrible Freight. Picked myself up some nice Chinese grade tools, ball joint press, a slide hammer puller set, and right there, that is a coolant refill kit. So that is an airlift, basically, for those who know it. Then we got a large bearing separator, which is going to be nice. So this is my mother's snowblower engine. The crankshaft and the rod sort of became one. And so we're rebuilding it for. It's an old 80s Simplicity, which is an Ellis Chalmers. And we're gonna need to, we got a crankshaft coming, we're gonna have to pop this gear off, this timing gear, because it's married to that one on the camshaft, which is one of the reasons I got that. And I'm gonna need it for manual transmission in the truck and the Mustang. Lots of stuff. But we've just been tearing things apart. Truck axles coming apart very nicely. I had to buy a special axle tool and take the nuts off. And another thing you guys are probably seeing is this monstrosity. What the heck happened here? What went wrong? Well, this hub was seized on, and as you can see, I tried torching the bearing out from the end. That didn't work because it was this bearing that was stuck. So the rotor was here, and I couldn't get behind the hub to pry it off. So I took my torch and I cut a hole in the top of it, and that gave me enough room to come in here with my high quality Horrible Freight pry bar that I've bent, and I got right behind this bearing and just sort of spent like 2 days trying to get this hub off. Not 2 days worth of work, more like a couple hours. But over the course of 2 days, in those couple hours, I tried getting this hub off, and all I did was cut that hole, and it's just boom, it literally fell off. So that's done. And now this side came apart much nicer. We are just pressing things out. I've got this knuckle torn down to nothing. All the bolts are out that were seized in. Ball joints, the spindles pressed out. So all these parts are ready to be cleaned up, blasted, painted, and then we can get some new rotors on order. And yeah, new bearings is going to be needed because the bearings they're okay on this side, but they're junk on that side, so we're going to replace both sides. I just got to press this part of the shaft off, and then this what are these called? TTBs, the twin traction beam. This I-beam can come off. I got to get the ball joints off somehow. I'm probably just going to torch those off, get that knuckle off, and yeah, everything is just really rusty. That press is making things easy when it comes to these spindles. They just popped right out. And I know you're not supposed to be impacting on these, but I did a little bit, just gently with the 1400 foot-pounds, and little tappies with the hammer, and this thing's performing really well. I bought the Maddox tools for the first time, but I noticed something. These boxes and these boxes look very similar, so that makes me think it's really just the same company. These are probably just 2% better than the Pittsburgh. Well, that's pretty much all we're doing. Googling my nice new tools. And not new, my nice new tools. That's where the emphasis should have gone. And then oogling my nice new tools. And tearing this front end apart. My plan with the front end is I'd like to get all the drive shafts out, get the center chunk out, the third member, the spin bit, and get that out. Get the arms painted, get everything painted, get the knuckles painted and reassembled, get them on here, press in the new pivots, and then start bolting. I got all the bracketry already painted, start bolting it up, get the front axle on as much as the rear axle is right now. And we got to get the U-joints, get those on. And the one thing I hate about all this 3/4 ton stuff is I can just toss the hubs on, but I have to take the hubs off, then put the brakes back on. And it's I gotta shell out money for the brake drums and the rotors pronto, because that way I can put the hubs on once, be done with it, and then I can have a rolling chassis. And then I just have to build the axles with it on the chassis. Except for that one. That one we can take out and do it on the bench, which would be nice. And a lot of people are thinking, why don't I just rebuild it now with it off the frame? Or take it back out from under the frame and rebuild it? I need something to hold it. And I don't have axle clamps like they do at professional shops. I'm not going to shell out a lot of money or waste my time building some, because if I were to build them, they'd probably take more time than they'd be worth, honestly. Now, if I start building more rear ends, then yeah, we'll need to eventually, especially on that Mustang, because that I can't. It's that yeah. That's only a 7 1/4, so we could probably like stick that in the vise and it'd be good. Oh, and speaking of that, I had to rob those out from under the wheels for the Delta 88, but I picked up a new set of the dollies, so we can put those back under the Mustang, so it's not resting on old brake drums. And I gotta figure out why this thing is tripping the breaker. This circuit always trips when I have my welder on max, and this thing, every single time it starts from a standstill, it trips the breaker. I'm thinking it's something to do with there's pressure in it, and when it goes to start it up, it is what am I trying to say? The pressure is making it really hard to turn, the motor really hard to turn, so it spikes the amperage, trips the breaker. But I also think that might be because this pulley is possibly a little too small. But I believe that the pulley that was on here was about this size beforehand. And I did do the math and figured out this is the right pulley, where this is operating at like 1280 RPMs. This is what was it, 3475 motor, 3450 motor. And this is operating at, so for those of you who don't know, oil compressor units need to operate at certain RPMs so that the oil splash keeps everything lubricated. And this thing can operate at like 1280 or 640, I believe. And I opted for the faster speed. But for some reason, it's not doing the thing correctly, and I don't know why it keeps tripping the breaker. I don't know if it's a circuit fault, but I don't think it is, because if the welder trips this circuit on max, then I plug the welder into that circuit right there on max, because these are not on the same thing. This is located, this has its own dedicated breaker. That outlet is on the same breaker with the workbench, which is weird. It's a little weird. And I could try and find special 30 amp 120 style outlets that cost $1 bajillion and then run 10 gauge wire through, but I'd rather not, considering I don't own this place. I want to invest a ton of money into the building. I just have to figure out why it keeps doing that. And yeah, I just got to figure out what's going on. I'm thinking I'll need a bigger compressor eventually. The compressor part, not the tank or the motor. Eventually. Not right now, but the thing is I can't have this tripping while I'm painting this spring. Otherwise, I'll have to be getting out of the paint booth, flip the breaker, and I'll get like another minute or so of painting, and that can't happen. So I'm either gonna have to borrow someone's compressor that doesn't trip the breaker, or figure out why this one keeps tripping it. So that's the plan. Not quite sure what I'm gonna do about it. Not because I'm not quite sure what's wrong with it. It could be like a motor start solenoid isn't good. It needs to be fixed. It could be high air pressure in this line, causing it to take way more torque than it's supposed to. It could be a bad switch. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. I might have to, because this motor rewires for 220 as well. So I might have to just, there's 30 amp outlets in there. I might have to just run a 220 really quick, rewire this motor for 220, put a new end on for 220, and run it like that. That would solve my problem. But then I gotta run conduit and do a bunch of stuff, and yeah. So if hooking up to 220 solves the problem, then we're gonna do it. But hopefully we can just continue to run it on 110 as is. So we'll see. But I'm gonna keep tearing this front end apart. I want this in all of its separate components before I leave tonight. So let's get cracking. My worst fears have been confirmed with this axle. We need a new spindle for the driver's side. There's a reason that they were seized on. There's that inner race. I actually had to torch out a little bit and crack it to get it off. Well, there is the reason right there. That is monumental. So she's gotta be replaced. And lucky me, the Dana 44 HD is kind of a funky monkey when it comes to axles. Kind of uncommon. Not the easiest to get your hands on parts for these suckers. So, hopefully I can find one that isn't $1 billion. And I'd be very happy if it wasn't $1 billion. But, either way, still gotta come off, so we're going to keep ripping and tearing. Gotta drain the fluid out of the pumpkin yet, and pull it, and then that shaft should come out. I have the ball joints loose. Just torched the ends of them off, and they've been pounded out, so they're all loosey-goosey in there. And all we gotta do is get this axle shaft out of here, which means we gotta unbolt the third member, back it out, slide it that way. That means it's gonna be messy, so I better get a pan, jack this up a little bit, and we will get it drained. So we have it very safely propped up with no risk of it tipping over at all. Just balanced right there. And on this jack, and the jack only has one side of the arms actually hooked up. This side is just hanging free. And it's always a good sign when you take the drain plug out and literally no oil comes out. That little puddle right there is all that has come out. So I say we just drop it off of this super safe setup and just zip it out and see what happens. And what's the worst that could happen? I mean, it spins, so we know that. We know that it's perfectly fine. It probably just needs to be topped off a little bit. So let's get it to it. Alrighty, guys. We have got it torn down this far. This is as far as I'm going to go tonight. We're going to clean up all this mess. Gears in here look actually pretty good. Everything spins. Everything was complete, and there's like no rust on the inside. So it wasn't without oil for very long. As long as I've had it. So around a year, I think I've had this axle. So yeah. All this, there's loaded with dirt. That wasn't all that was in there. That was like around the edges and stuff. So we got to dump that out. Vacuum it up, stuff like that. I don't think I'm going to sandblast these. I think we're just going to paint them and then see what happens. And I know that's the wrong thing to do. I absolutely know that's the wrong thing to do. But this is sort of a budget. And it's sort of a test. I'd like to sandblast them, but I don't think I'm going to, just because we're just sort of doing a budget restoration, and if the axles start to rust a little bit, it won't be the end of the world. It'll be disappointing, but it'll be fine. We got this other knuckle taken apart, the driver's side. Only thing that was a pain was that the previous owner snapped this bolt. And what this bolt does is, the way the discs are held on is, there's just a friction pin that's the disc, the caliper goes up like that, and then you friction fit a pin in, and then that bolt you thread in and prevents the pin from sliding out. And I couldn't get it out with an easy out, so what I had to do is drill it bigger. We're gonna have to time insert it later, and then that'll be fixed. Other than that, it's just fine. Ball joints came out super easy. Spindle was actually easier to get out than passenger side. And other than that, we're definitely going to sandblast all the smaller stuff. I think it's just the I-beams that won't get sandblasted, or maybe I will sandblast them. They're not big enough to fit in the blasting cabinet at work, though. That's the thing. So I would have to run them next door and have them blasted, and I might do that with all these parts. If I do run these over, I'm gonna give them the case and the backing plates. Well, I'll do the backing plates because those are delicate. But the knuckles, the plates, I'll do the spindles and the hubs. The drive shafts I'll do. So really it'd just be those and the third member. But then I've got like the core support that needs to be blasted. I've got some other stuff that needs to be blasted that's larger and doesn't fit in the cabinet at work. I might as well give them these cross member bits that I don't really feel like doing. And yeah. If I was going all out too, I'd take these springs off, disassemble them, have them blasted, powder coated, and then I'd put them back on. Just because the powder coating is tougher than a paint. But I don't know how long these are gonna last. So it's fine. We're just gonna slap them on. You won't even see them. And if you do see them, I'll just slap some paint over the front of them, and it'll look good for a while. But this truck, it will be driven in the winter, so it's not going to stay perfect forever. But it'll stay perfect for a while. Until we drive it in the rain, and then the acid rain starts eating away at the clear coat. that will be the first time, or until it's parked in the sun and the paint starts to fade. So yeah, pretty much we're just gonna wrap it up for the evening. Got the axle disassembled. I just have to disassemble a third member, and really that should be pop it out, clean it out, paint it, put her back together with new seals, because everything spins fine, but we gotta check backlash and all that jazz. So yeah, a lot of stuff to clean up, but we'll get to it. And it's only Friday, so I got Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to work on this yet, so it should be good. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it for tonight. Should get to sandblasting tomorrow, but I got other people's cars to fix tomorrow too, so we'll see what happens. Catch you guys on the flippity flip.